The more Trump and Republicans in Congress try to undermine the Affordable Care Act and raise the costs of health care,
if rich, smug blowhards like Robert Reich actually had to pay for this stuff themselves, they'd see that the rising costs happened under Obama. Things have actually gotten a bit better since Trump took office.
over 70% of Americans and even 52% of Republicans support Medicare for all. A single-payer plan that builds on Medicare and would cover everyone at far lower cost than the current system.
Far lower costs, huh? Let's do the math on this. In 2017, the federal government spent about $700 billion on Medicare annually to cover 55 million beneficiaries. Expand that to the entire U.S. population of 330 million, and it ends up being around $4.1 trillion a year. But tax revenues for 2017 were only about $3.2 trillion. So even if you only use the federal budget to pay for Medicare and absolutely nothing else, you still wouldn't have enough money. You'd end up with a deficit of over $780 billion. Fake economist Robert Reich hasn't even done a basic reality check here.
Medicare for all is the cheapest and best direction for the country.
I've just shown that it isn't. This claim is ridiculous.
Guaranteeing health care to every single American as a right.
It does no such thing. It'll do what every other form of universal healthcare has done. Make real costs of healthcare more expensive, forcing them to keep prices down through various forms of rationing such as waiting lists. A real right to healthcare would mean that you'd be free to seek out whatever practitioner you wanted, take whatever medicine he said you needed, at a price you would agree to, with no interference from the government. And other practitioners would be free to compete, which is the only way to lower prices. Only a dyed-in-the-wool socialist cultist like Reich could pretend that taking your choices away means you're guaranteeing people's rights.
Private for-profit insurers spend a fortune trying to attract healthy people while avoiding sick people.
We've known this is a lie for decades, Reich. You're not fooling anyone who isn't already on your team, who are just going to blindly go along with what people on your team say.
Filling out paperwork from hospitals and providers.
Because your holy government requires that much paperwork of them.
Paying top executives and rewarding shareholders. And for-profit insurers are trying to merge like mad in order to make even more money.
Funny how you didn't mention that health insurance companies have a profit margin less than 5%. Did you even bother to look that up? Or is this really about trying to trigger outrage in people, activating the amygdala so that you can bypass their rational thinking facilities?
This is why private for-profit health insurance is becoming so expensive.
But wait a minute, Obamacare was supposed to make it less expensive. Why do you think they called it the Affordable Care Act? And yet you and everyone else on your team screeches in horror whenever someone mentions the possibility of increasing competition between insurance companies. Even so much as the ability of people to purchase insurance from across state lines. You know, I also haven't seen you argue against protectionist licensing boards or requirements that hospitals file a statement of need before they're allowed to open. All things that reduce competition and keep costs high.
And why almost every other advanced nation, including our neighbor to the north, has adopted a single-payer system at less cost per person and with better health outcomes.
Yeah, unless you're stuck on a waiting list and your condition becomes untreatable. Or you have to win a lottery in order to see your doctor, or the dispatcher decides you don't deserve an ambulance at the time, or have a vital operation just outright denied to you, forcing you to go to another country to get it, or if you're an old person and they need the bed space so they starve you to death. All of these things and more are things that have happened with government health care, as I covered in my video, How to Argue for Universal Health Care. Links are in the description, and it's fully sourced. In fact, Reich didn't say one single thing that hasn't already been debunked. People have no excuse anymore.
Medicare saves so much money for three simple reasons. First, it has economies of scale. The more enrollees, the lower the cost per enrollee.
That's not how it works, moron. The more enrollees, the greater the obligations, and the greater amount of costs you have to collect. Besides, didn't you just a minute ago complain about mergers between insurance companies? So why is a big scale good with your holy government, but bad with private companies? Hypocrite!
Medicare for All would have even larger economies of scale, presumably lowering the per-person cost even further.
Then how come it hasn't worked that way even once in Medicare's history? Even by the turn of the century, seniors were already paying more money out of pocket for healthcare expenses than they were before Medicare began.
Second, Medicare spends almost nothing on marketing and advertising.
Yeah, funny how you don't have to do that when you're a coercive monopoly. But then, you're not counting the free advertising the news media gives whenever some politician gives a speech about it. All those times Obama droned on and on about Medicare in his speeches on every single channel. How much do you think that would have cost if he'd had to pay for the airtime himself? Not counting all the time news pundits have talked about it. No insurance company could afford that much advertising.
Third, Medicare doesn't have to earn profits.
Yeah, because profit is a dirty word. As if the free market hasn't created nonprofit hospitals and clinics all over the place. And yes, that includes a lot of nonprofit insurance companies. For example, a lot of Blue Cross Blue Shield providers all over the country are set up as nonprofits. But you can only make this claim by ignoring the reality of universal healthcare as it's practiced in the real world. In the UK, for example, doctors get paid more when they give statins to their patients, when statins should only be considered after lifestyle changes have been implemented, and even then, there's still some controversy about their use. The UK remains the statins capital of Europe, with some 40% of the adult population being advised to take them, far more than it is in the US. Even in the US, they're overprescribed according to most experts, but in the UK, it's much worse. We also know that profit-seeking saves lives. In most countries, organ donors have to be put on these long waiting lists where there aren't anywhere near enough organs for them all, and so most of them die. Iran is a country that doesn't do much right as far as healthcare is concerned, but it is the one place in the world where it's legal to sell your kidney, and as a result, Iran has no waiting lists for kidney transplantation. In the Philippines, the sale of organs was legal up to 2008. Up to this point, the Philippines not only had enough organs to cover their own population, but it was also a popular tourist destination for medical tourists needing transplants. Since the ban, the number of available organs has dropped dramatically, and there are waiting lists again. A similar thing happened in India in 1994, when a ban of organ sales took India from having the biggest kidney transplant centers in the world to waiting lists. And yet, shamefully, there have been no major studies published in prominent medical journals of the effects of these bans on donors or patients. We certainly haven't had any of this from the likes of you! Understand, most of the names on those waiting lists are future corpses, people who have families that will grieve for them, and may even depend on them for part or most of their livelihood. But they're not part of your agenda, so you don't even care!
The American public has a real choice here. Expensive healthcare for the few, or quality, affordable healthcare for the many.
And the only way to get the latter is to get rid of all the government interference in healthcare and make it a free market. Government is responsible for the mess we're in now. This has been shown over and over and over again. Reich just wants to make it worse so that he and his cronies can profit, and for no other reason. Hey, if you enjoyed this video, why not hit like and subscribe? And to make sure I can keep producing content, support this channel by becoming a patron. And check out all the other great content here, like this video selected especially for you.